Schalke 0. Oh, they've done it! Steven Tirada, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau und weiß sein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf Schalke America. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me as always, co-host Jack Mangan. Jack, how are we doing?
Doing well, sir. Happy holidays, I suppose.
Happy holidays.
We're finally kind of into the year-end holiday stretch. Not a lot to celebrate from this past weekend, unfortunately. Not a great result. Seemed to be a result that sort of threw the online community into panic mode, I feel like.
Hysteria!
Kind of like post-new coach bump depression, if you will. So curious what your thoughts are as we kind of get into things.
Yeah, it's I think the problems that we had under Rice remain. We had a minor new manager bump, and we're back to our old ways, and I don't know what it is. I mean, yeah, it's interesting how it can't put too much of the blame on the coach. All the blame on the coach. I mean, I think at this point, players get a lot of blame because it's through two managers at this point, and the same stuff remains. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think we're very good as a squad, which I've said before. I think we're better than what we're showing, but perhaps not. Is definitely not playing that way at the moment. I think there's things that I like about the new manager. I think that the way we're trying to play is often a little bit more identifiable. We have more consistent like shape and structure, but obviously this past weekend was not great. Anytime you score 5 goals, you're going to be thrown under quite a bit of scrutiny. I think the second half was much better than the first half, however. And so the extent to which I'm hitting like the doomsday button, I think I'm a little bit less on that than perhaps some other people are, but I'm also not under any illusions that we're not still, very much needing to prove ourselves to get out of a relegation fight. So I'm being realistic, I feel like, but I also don't think that this one performance is necessarily.
Look out to Nonders, Joseph, and Eric. See you guys in the chat. We won the second half, right? I think this game sums up perfectly what we've been talking about Schalke, what we thought they were heading into the season. A decent attack that can score goals and a defense that scares the shit out of us that can't stop anything. It's pretty much what it is. And it seems like the defense is worse and the attack is good. And so thus we give up more goals than we score. And so this game was a whole thing encapsulated there. I'll put the starting lineups in here, not necessarily we have to go through them. I got a lot of comments on this team, and I think it's going to show up as we talk about the game. Fairly standard starting 11 at this point, but that's a question marks all the way around, I think, overall. And I think, only thing I'll start off with saying is that Fortuna Dusseldorf look like Bayern Munich. Not only in their kits, right? Their kits are very Bayern Munich-like, but we made them look like Bayern Munich out there. Just first 30 minutes, I was like, oh god, this is gonna be 8-0 game. Like, what the hell is going on? You sent me a text. I didn't get to watch the game live. I watched it in replay, but you sent me a text like, oh god, what is this, or whatever you said. And I'm like, what? I looked like scored 30 minutes in. I'm like 3-0. What the hell? Like, how can you be? Oh god, already the game just started. But damn, not ideal start in this one. It's interesting. The one thing I'll say about Fortuna Dusseldorf, right? They did look good, but how much is that because of us, right? They are third or fourth in the table. They're up there, but their goalie plays very aggressive. He plays very reminiscent of Hamburg when they first got relegated, when they tried to do this new whole goalkeeper sweeper thing where he played up very high in the pitch and was involved in defensive distribution and stuff like that. So I noticed that right away because at times he was at like midfield, just playing the ball around and seemed very comfortable there. It was eye-opening to me, and maybe it also says something about us that maybe they didn't feel threatened by us, that the goalkeeper's like, I'm gonna come play the game with you guys. I don't know. What are your thoughts on how I guess Fortuna Dusseldorf started the game?
I thought it was unnecessary as well, because I don't feel like, particularly in the first half, or at least early in the first half, we were putting a whole lot of pressure on the ball in those early build-up phases. No. You had sort of that's like, the 5-3-2 defensive shape, and if they'd play it out to like a wide center back or whoever sort of in those areas, you wouldn't have one of the midfield three coming up to like close down along with the striker. So they can kind of just go back and forth as needed until they found like the numerical overload or whatever they needed to do to kind of get forward. But they did a good job of creating triangles on those sides and once again, like numerical advantages to get through us. But I noticed the goalkeeper as well, and that just kind of added to what they were able to do. And once again, those early build-up phases, initially pretty lifeless, I thought.
Yes. I think that the whole defense was atrocious, but I think in particular the left side of the defense, and when I say that, I mean Kaminsky and Oyan. On the first goal, Kaminsky and Oyan just ball watching. Vermey, wide open, gets a shot off and goal and scores. It's just like, what are you doing, guys? Like, two guys are just sitting there watching Vermey, just sitting there, boom, goal. I mean, not the ideal way. 9 minutes into the game to get a goal just like that, 13 minutes into the game, and just ball watching as defenders, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, to me, I would blame this more on Kaminsky and Merkin than Ovejan.
Maybe it's Merkin I saw, not Ovejan.
I mean, you could blame Ovejan if you want to. I guess what I would say is Ovejan was the only guy that was like shoulder checking and trying to make sure there wasn't somebody running in behind him. So he was kind of the furthest back and was kind of making sure he wasn't going to get beat by this guy. And then you could argue that he didn't do enough to, follow the guy in front of him. But neither Kaminsky or Merkin checked at any point to see where their man was that they were on a second ago. So they drifted off of him and then, were completely out of position. So I blame that more on the center backs than Uwe on there. But yeah, I mean, it's just a, wide ball back post, lose contact with your guy, easy header across face of goal. So yeah, pretty easy. Not well defended at all. I mean, if it's one of those balls where, you're pretty much on top of your guy, you go up for it and you just mistime it, or, the guy beats you for it, that's fine. But, those uncontested headers are not what we're looking for, particularly when we're struggling the way we are. We need to actually make the people earn some of these goals a little bit harder. But nice delivery and nice finish from Dusseldorf's perspective. So good. And once again, moving the ball around, getting to various sides of the pitch to kind of stretch us out once they got into our half, I thought was good from them in the first half. And then at some points later in the second half, once we kind of got tired out, I think
their manager played this game right, because either he knew or they saw early on that Schalke were playing zonal defensing. It wasn't man marking at all, and the players like Vermey and some of these other guys were just dropping into the areas where they weren't any coverage, and Schalke wasn't willing to put a body on somebody and just left the guys wide open, and hence he was open there in the goal. And we saw this theme throughout the game. Second goal just minutes later, 6 minutes later, Felix Klaus, again, ball watching by all the center backs, and there I thought Kaminsky was being useless at that point. As bad as that defending was, I don't think that goal should have counted. I'm going to say that it should have been considered a offsides obstruction play, where I think it was Vermey again, who was in front of Fairman, an offside position, while Felix Klaus was taking a shot and it went in. I've seen that called 9 times out of 10 going against the scoring side, and the goal is wiped out. That's one of the first calls I've seen where that wasn't called. Thoughts on should have been a goal, should have not, and then just the play overall and the poor defensive shape, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't consider it from that angle, from like a disallowed angle. I'd have to kind of,
and that's what they were initially. The VAR was going for. VAR was looking for that initially.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe they just determined that it wasn't enough of obstruction or something. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, ball comes in from wide. I was seeing a lot of Matriciani hate after this game too, and I don't think this was his worst game. I mean, if you're gonna say like
last game was worse,
if you're gonna say like, oh, he was letting balls in from wide areas, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, you want to try to have a defensive posture such that you're discouraging people from playing those and occasionally block some of them. But if your standard is that you're never going to allow somebody to play a ball in from a wide area, I just think that's a little bit unrealistic. But yeah, ball comes in low. Kaminsky, there's two runners, right? Kaminsky's initially following his guy in sort of near post. And then once he realizes that the ball that's getting played in is being played in behind the two of them, he comes off his man to try to like step back and intercept the ball. He doesn't get there in time. Merkin is following the secondary runner who picks up the ball. Merkin's nowhere near his man. Kaminsky sort of like picks Merkin accidentally, and Merkin has to go around the back of him and kind of gets separated from his man. And then Fairman kind of gets picked again by the first runner, right? Who's you're just saying was kind of like obstructing the shot.
Yeah.
And it's a clever kind of like finish, but
For
you could
sure.
argue maybe Fairman should do a little bit better there. Maybe he was unsighted. But yeah, I don't think it was catastrophic from Kaminsky in terms of how he played that. I just think once again you have a second play in a row where Merkin's just nowhere near putting a body on somebody. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe Kaminsky should have played that better. I thought he was okay on that one, but yeah, just a weird goal, sort of the way that ultimately went through. A little bit less like decisive than the first one for sure.
And it may have been just my rage slowly building because at that point it was 2 plays, Kaminsky in the vicinity of both goals, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You're being useless out there. Like, really, you're not doing. And Merkin was any better, And I hear your hate about Matriciani, not yours, but other people's hate about Matriciani. Honestly, I think every single person on that pitch, and maybe even the managers as well, everyone on the bench, was at fault for the first 30 minutes. They were all trash. They were all ass. I probably say Kaminsky's probably the worst of all of them. Again, that could just be because I was pissed off at he was in the vicinity of both those goals, but it was poor all the way across. I still, I refute that should have been a goal that counted, but it is what it is. Fortuna was by far the better team at this point, first 20 minutes, and they were just completely annihilating us.
By the way, real quick, we also had a handball that we didn't get.
Yes,
that was Drexler was playing across, and we have seen that exact thing called on us
every
many
time.
times.
Every time.
So I mean, I'm not saying that that has to be a penalty necessarily, because I kind of hate those penalties in the first place. But could that have been a penalty? 100% that could have been a penalty.
Would it have changed the game?
Seen or called. So I mean, Drexler was complaining about that. I think he actually had a point when you saw the replay. The guy was definitely in the box, and his arm was pretty far out behind his body.
Yeah.
Made clear contact. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that could have completely changed the game, honestly, with the momentum wise, because at that point we get down 2-0, and then minutes later, Vermeij gets his second again, the third goal of the game for Fortuna Dusseldorf. I thought Fairman was poor on this one. Kaminsky again gets into my radar because he was marking Matriciani on that goal. Why? And I don't know why on the goal line there. Merkin picking his ass. I don't know what the hell he was doing. It was just horrible defending once again. And Vermeij. Now, granted, Fairman misreads that play along the crossbar and then wasn't aggressive at all going for the loose ball. It's like, what are you doing, man? So it's like every person in the defense was 6s and 7s back there, including the goalkeeper. And I was like, really? This is the kind of game we're going to have right here?
Yeah. If the second goal was less decisive than the first, the third goal was significantly less decisive than either of the first two. Like you said, it's a weird crossfield ball sort of back post. A shot comes in, he hits kind of the corner of the crossbar, and it pops the ball up really high in the air, so that it's landing sort of directly in the center of the goal, like right in front of where the goalie would typically be standing. I thought Fairman was super weak on this play, like kind of briefly makes contact with somebody and falls down. Like he needs to go up way stronger than that. So that was disappointing from Fairman, especially now that he's all like tatted up and like trying to show off his muscles and stuff. Like I thought that was not his best moment. But likewise, as you said, you have Kaminsky and Matriciani both on the actual goal line trying to block an eventual shot, and there's no one that's actually trying to go up and win that ball in the first place. Like Kaminsky would have been much better served with his height, and you know what I mean, like going up and trying to win that and clear it. And it was way too passive on that play. So just another like really weird broken play where it kind of scrambles across the goal line. Super disappointing. But like, and once again, maybe I should be putting more stock in this than I am. I just feel like that goal and to some extent the goal before that were just sort of weird plays that I don't necessarily know are super indicative of like bad issues, like structurally as such as more just like a lack of effort and like individual focus. I don't know, but maybe I'm totally giving us way too much credit for those plays.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we titled this podcast "Fragile," and I think it's a fragile mindset with this team. And the one obvious thing outside of how bad we looked was that we were losing every 50-50 play. It was like they wanted it, they got it every time. Anytime there's a broken play, you knew that we're going to be on a bad end of it, whether it's they get the ball back or they whatever. It's always going to be them getting the. So we looked like we were lacking passion, 100% lacking trying, lacking everything. And those 3 goals, I mean, as the goals went in, they got particularly worse and worse in terms of what we just seemed like lost. And it seems like whenever there's a broken play, we run around with our heads with chickens with their heads cut off. And it's like we work so hard on being disciplined on what we see, we know is coming. We need to work more on like when there's chaos happening, being smart and trying to just clear the ball. No nonsense. Be strong. Like your Fairman. Go after the ball. Be strong. You like you said, you got tattoos. You think you got muscles out there trying to show it off. Go out there, kill somebody. You're a goalkeeper. You have a little bit more leniency than anybody else. Like, go for it. Kala, same thing. I mean, all these guys are just like not enough gumption and going for the ball.
Yeah, you got to look at loose balls as opportunities, more
Yes.
than just sort of like inconveniences or adopting a reactive mindset and like, okay, how am I going to position myself to deal with this once the opposition comes down with this?
Where's the Jermaine Jones that we need, right?
Right. It was way too passive. The third goal was a very, very bad goal to concede for sure. And indicative of, I think, a lack of energy and focus in the first half with at least the initial grouping that was out there that started the match before. Some of them got the hook early.
Yeah, well, our man Drexler, who he just re-upped recently, to 2025, and we had a video and I said that he's probably better suited as a super sub just because he doesn't have the minutes, and he gets injured. Unfortunately, had nothing to do with him not being fit or anything. It just he's got injured. I think it was a groin injury. I mean, I've got a million groin injuries in my life. They're painful, and you can't really prevent them from happening. And so he gets injured. He gets pulled in the 30th minute, but he wasn't the only one. Thomas Oyan gets yanked, and Templeman get yanked. Both players very poor, I thought, in the first half. Oyan, in particular, he was giving up a lot of balls offensively. He seemed lost out there. Templeman had a couple flurries, but really wasn't contributing offensively or defensively. Oyan, in particular, as he came off, very angry, and I can see why you're angry coming off in the 30th minute. I would be too. Didn't bother shaking the coach's hand. I think he said something to the coach as well. He ends up with getting a discipline for that, very similar to what Timo Baumgartel got. Thomas Oyan got suspension went down to the U23s and fined as well. I think it's just for one game. We'll double check that. Hopefully he's back for the Osnabrück game, but I guess it would be the Osnabrück game that he would get suspended for. But yeah, three changes had to be made, Jack, and and that was Gerards. Gerards had to do something. We've seen this before, right? Tedesco was known to do that a lot. Pull guys in the first half when things were going their way. Thoughts on those substitutions happening, in particular the two that were not injuries.
Yeah, the Temple one I was fine with. I thought he was either anonymous or just kind of negative in the first half. I sort of disagree with you on Ovejan. I thought he misplaced a couple passes, but they were sort of like through ball attempts in the final third, and I tend to give people more of the benefit of the doubt when they're being positive and aggressive. It's not as if he was just sort of hitting a horizontal pass in build up that was sort of misweighted, and then guy had to chase after him and lose the ball that way. And I don't think he was terrible defensively early either. So I can understand him being upset with being taken off. I think you had to change something, and I actually applaud him for once again having sort of the gumption to switch two people. I mean, if you don't want to count Drexler because he was injured and was going to have to switch anyway, but like an additional two people in the first half, I actually kind of respect that in a situation, if for no other reason to send a message to the team to wake people up. But I definitely felt like Ovejan was not even remotely the worst person on the pitch at that point. And so I understand being upset. But I also understand, especially since it's relatively early into the manager's kind of reign, that, if he thought that the response from him was just kind of over the top or out of line, that he wants to kind of put a kibosh on that and send a message early, which is kind of like, it doesn't matter who you are or how valuable you are, like from a perception standpoint to the team, like no one's above the team concept. So yeah, frustrating that it had to go that way. Yeah, hopefully Ovejan's fine going forward.
He did apologize after the game. But in the replacement, Moore would come in for Drexler, and you would have Idrizi coming in and Seguin as well. So yeah, usually when you have the substitutions, you hope to see an immediate impact as a result, like the extra fire or something, right, to set up a wake-up call. And I didn't really notice it, Jack. I don't know if you did, but it just seemed like we continued to turn the ball over as the first half went on and on. We didn't get our first shot until third minute of stoppage time in the first half. Karaman, but
I think generally I'm not a huge fan of Seguin, but I will say that I think when he came out in this game, he actually did bring some of what we needed, which is, I don't know. I felt like he's able sometimes to play passes in rhythm better than some other people.
Yeah,
certainly better than Templeman. who I think is a little bit wild and kind of like doesn't have the right weight on things at times. Seguin, like you could tell he's looking for various options and evaluating, and he usually plays something that kind of like I think facilitates a nice, I don't know. I liked the way he established his tempo for us, I think, when he came in a little bit in possession. So I do think he helped to kind of improve sort of our tempo and build up in possession when he came in, although it didn't obviously yield dividends initially. And I do think with Moore and Idrizi, despite, a lack of sort of any sort of cohesion offensively in the first half, I do think they brought a lot more energy off the ball in the 15 or so minutes before the first half ended. So I do think that they improved sort of what we were doing against the ball to some extent at the end of the first half. So I give them that credit. And also in favor of Tobias Moore, like regardless of how well he plays, he usually is one of those guys that actually is putting in a shift every time he comes on.
Yeah.
And like for a club in the situation that Schalke's in, that like has to be the baseline for anybody to make the starting 11. And that's something that the manager's been talking about, is trying to improve their fitness so they can actually compete physically. So I actually really appreciated that from Tobias Moore and respected that, because he tends to do that, pretty consistently, and did that on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree about that. I thought he certainly put a shift in this one. And so we went to halftime 3-0. I mean, luckily we didn't get many goals the last 15 minutes of that first half, but man, 3 goals in the first 30, even if it was the first 25 or something like that. But horrible the first half, as bad as you can get, honestly. Making, like I said, making Fortuna look like Bayern Munich, especially with those kits. It didn't look that great. I wanted to see what second half was gonna bring out. We got a little bit of a break, I think. As the second half came out, we started to look a little better. But I think Fortuna were so comfortable with that 3-0 lead that they didn't play as well as it did in the first half. And we started seeing a little bit more errors that we hadn't seen in the first half from Fortuna. And in particular, 57th minute, a horrible error by the players weren't even paying attention or whatever. Ball goes through, gets on the end of, I forget who it was, maybe it was Matriciani or someone, and the cross comes in. Lasma, arguably my man of the match for Schalke, plays a nice ball header right to the path of Kaminsky, and Kaminsky slots it away. It wasn't like a powerful shot or anything. He just well played shot, gets it past the keeper, and he's boom. Okay, we got a goal. All of a sudden, it's 3-1. We got a chance here. I just thought that Fortuna's misfortune and then our heads up play on that was particularly the last one to not try to go for goal, but he saw an open guy and laid the ball off to him perfectly, and Kaminsky slid the ball away. It was a bit of fortune there for us in a game that was so dreary. That was a nice bright spot just to kick the second half off.
Yeah, the origins of that move were definitely sort of like a broken play situation, and I understand you're calling that fortunate from our perspective. I do think that once again against the ball, our energy levels and our effort and our sort of our cohesion was better to start the second half, and so we were putting a little bit more pressure on them, a little bit more compact and closing things down. But anyway, yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned Lasma as your man of the match, because much better second half of him, in my opinion, than first half. I actually thought he was one of the worst players on the pitch in the first half. Interestingly, before Drexler was taken off, there were multiple moments too where he was kind of yelling at Lasma about various things. I know there was one moment in particular where Lasma kind of got on the end of a loose ball, but he was getting closed down, and Drexler was right there for a 5-yard back pass and could have received it and then played him forward. And Lasma tried to do a weird turn solo and take somebody on, and he lost the ball. And Drexler was just dink it to me and keep possession, and let's build something. So I did think Lasma was a little bit selfish in the first half at times, and also if he's going to be dropping that deep for hold up play or not, I mean it could have been off of a possession too, so maybe I'm getting the situation wrong, but actually link up with people and utilize them, and don't try to go solo mode and dribble everything on your own and turn up field. So I still have some questions too about Lasma, whether or not I think he is better out wide or central, but we can talk about that later. Anyway, much better second half, as we were saying, and an unselfish play on this particular goal, because the cross comes into him. He's kind of backpedaling, has a couple guys that he's drawing into his orbit, and probably realizes there's not a whole lot I'm going to be able to do from this situation. And just kind of softly heads it back towards the center of the goal, as you said. Kaminsky and somebody else was there. Kaminsky kind of whips a foot at it, beautifully placed, right into the corner. Kaminsky had a rip in the first half too that was wide to the right, but not dissimilar. And we know that Kaminsky's got a leg on him, scores some some set piece goals now and again. So actually really impressive strike from Kaminsky. Nice goal, and take it, get back in the game and go from there.
Absolutely. 1-0 at that, or 3-1 at that point. I think it's funny because I think everyone who was on the pitch in the second half from the first half played substantially better. I think everyone was really bad in that first half. In the second half, most of the guys were a lot better. I thought in the second half, Lasma, Kaminsky, a guy who was just ripping a couple minutes ago. I thought he was better in that second half. I think for me, the tide for Schalke change, and it's going to sound funny because a goal happened after this, but I think the change of the game for me, for Schalke, is when Tobias Moore goes to the bench and Gerarts gives him a piece of paper with new directions. Like, this, we're going to do this from going forward. And he's like, shared it to the whole team. And from that point on, what we saw from Schalke is the pressing began to start happening, and it caused Fortuna to play very, sloppy passes and losing the ball, and Schalke getting the ball. Lasma and a couple other guys started, Matriciani started stealing the ball from people and stuff like that. And I thought that was good immediate reaction from Gerarts and company to kind of change things up, and they had to smell blood in the water and try to increase the pressure on Fortuna and try to get them to cause more turnovers, so maybe more opportunities the other way.
I think for like the first 5-7 minutes after the goal that we scored, that kind of gave us some life and some buoyancy, and once again defensively got much better in that period. Then I felt like we kind of got fatigued for a bit, and the game opened up a little bit, and they started having more opportunities in transition, which is kind of where they ended up scoring their fourth. But I would agree with the sentiment for sure that it was much better in the second half than the first half, definitely.
And to your point, the game did open up, and that fourth goal was, again, poor defending from everybody. Matriciani kind of pinched unnecessarily because I thought Kalash was there. Kalash, tries to go and get the guy on the backside. Who is it? The Greek player, Soldis or whatever his name is, goes to the ground for no reason. I think he was premature on that. I don't know. He went down, and guy gets a wide open shot and scores a goal, a rocket of a shot past Fairman. But again, poor defense once again. Open play. We just can't be that open against a team that has playmakers like Fortuna do.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, Kalash went to ground kind of early. Patriciani couldn't recover. And it's a nice finish overall, to the far post for number 4. But a little bit too easy, too exposed. And that's when they start. I mean, second half at times, like I said, once it opened up, we were kind of narrow to the box a lot, and so they ended up getting a lot of these sort of backdoor runners coming in sort of unmarked, or creating, once again, numerical overloads where it's Matriciani's tight to people because he's trying to defend a ball that could be coming to the man that he's in front of, but then there's people way behind him that can get in and these long balls. So that was a problem for sure. I mean, I thought it was interesting though, I think it was even in the first half when we made that triple sub that we changed shape too, because we started off once again sort of that 5-3-2 defensive shape or whatever, and then moved to more of a 4-2-3-1 when those substitutes came on. We had sort of 2 people more deep with it was Tobias Moore was playing left wing, right, and Merkin moved over to left back. He wasn't playing center back anymore. Correct. So he just moved to back 4. We haven't played a lot of that under the new manager, so I'm interested to see whether or not he actually ends up going with that more consistently, or just happened to be that particular mix of personnel informed that change of shape. So something to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, one of the first things he said when he first joined the team is this is the formation I like. However, the team's going to show me what their strengths are, and we're going to adapt to that. And maybe that's part of that, with the change of shape, change of formation there. But you had mentioned Tobias Moore playing on the left-hand side, and you also talk about backdoor, and both those would come to fruition on the 74th minute, where a sensational cross by Moore. I thought he typically likes to go with his left foot, but he cuts onto the right foot, gets a nice cross in, and backdoor. You see Kalash, what he's doing that far up, I don't really care, but hey, he got on there and he put it away. Naldo-esque, if you want to call it, wonderfully played.
Very similar to Dusseldorf's first goal against us. Very similar play.
Absolutely. And made at that point 4-2, and we're like, okay, there we go. I like it. The momentum came back immediately, and you're like, okay, let's just ride this momentum. I'm thinking, the next 5-10 minutes, let's ride this momentum. Took 30 seconds, Jack. Right off the kickoff, they turn it over, and our boy Idrizi heads up play over the top, gets it to Lasma. And we talked about Lasma, and at times he tends to be too selfish. He tries to beat everyone by himself. On this play, it worked. He bullied the defense, goes right through him, really, and gets a shot past the keeper. And all of a sudden, it's within 30 seconds, we get 2 goals, and it's 4-3 at this point. We're like, oh my gosh. And before you say anything, this weekend, I believe it was this weekend or this game, was a 6 or 7 year anniversary of the 4-4 game against Dortmund. Schalke Twitter kept posting it all week long, saying, hey, remember this day 7 years ago, or whatever it was. And I remember in the Discord chat, someone said it was at halftime, and someone says like, hey, it's a recipe for a comeback now, with the 3-0 down. Who knows? Obviously they say, tongue in cheek, but 4-3 at this point with 15 minutes to play, you were like, hey, Jack, this might happen here. I mean, 2 goals in 30 seconds, I'll take it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, that second goal, for number 3, Seguin gets it to Idrisi, little rainbow touch over the defender, and then like on the volley lead pass touch, kind of blooper over the top to Lasma. So super nifty, super clever from Idrisi. Love that. I mean, look, I don't know why it's been Matriciani of all of our sort of like younger players that have come through that the coaching and the apparatus is sort of determined is the guy. When you think of all the other people that haven't quite gotten like the run in the team that he has, and like Idrisi's another sort of like, once was lost, but now is found, kind of making his way back into the flock here. And this is kind of one of his first opportunities as the new manager. It wasn't always the cleanest in this game.
No.
But liked his energy, liked his, how locked in he was and everything. And then this particular sequence was lovely from Idrisi. And then, Lasma, this is where he can shine at times. It's the balance too. It's not just like strength. It's the balance and the body control to be able to like, he's fielding a ball. It's kind of turning him backwards away from goal while holding off a defender, and is able to kind of do that whole thing. And, it's a very acrobatic finish. So props to him. Like you said, much better second half, had the assist, had that play there. Good stuff. And yeah, the 4-3 was, you hate it because it makes you hope a little bit. And that Schalke was more likely to dash those hopes than not, but it was nice for a minute. Good response from the team. I like to see it.
This happens every game with Schalke. It doesn't matter how the game goes. There's always a get you back in there with the hope. There's always an optimism that, hey, we might do this. We might do this. We've seen it in the past. So it's 4-3 for the last 15 minutes of the game. Game opened up immensely. I mean, it was wide open, Wild West at this point. Opportunities going left and right. Both teams getting opportunities. Schalke certainly looked much better in that second half than the first half. So the 3 of the best opportunities in the second half. You had Karaman had a great opportunity, should have put it away really with with the way he cut in front of the goal there. Vermeij had a close chance in the other end. Polter had a chance too, where I thought for sure that was going to go a goal. Very, very weak on the shot there. And then time is just ticking away. Vermeij gets an injury right at 90-minute mark. And they're saying 6 minutes, and he's down for like 5 minutes, it seems like. But then at 94th minute, our hopes get dashed when Karl Jastrzębski leads the break, leads the counterattack, and he finds Nemec, the guy who just came off the bench, and scores a 5th goal for Fortuna, makes it 5-3 at that point. Game, set, match. Wide open. There was a lot of chance in that second half. Maybe the opportunities weren't as great as they could have been, but I liked seeing it that open just because we had that hope. And like anything could have happened where we could have scored that 4th goal and made it, tie game. But
this is another one where I'm kind of saying like, the score, conceding 5 goals is bad, but there's a couple of these that are just weird goals or not really indicative of like poor defensive performance overall. Like at that point in the game, we're throwing everything forward, trying to make something happen on a set piece. And it's a counterattack off of a corner kick, and it's a fresh leg goal. They just made all these subs, as you said, and it's guys with fresh legs, with kind of an open chance to counter. I mean, so I'm not putting too much stock in us conceding there.
No.
We were going for the comeback to make it the 4-4, and it didn't work out for us. But I mean, the game was lost well before that in other areas. So, disappointing that it ends that way. But I liked the response at least in the second half. And like I said, given the way some of those goals went through, even though some of them were pretty bad goals to concede, for some reason it wasn't as, I don't know, I just wasn't as demoralized by their performance as I feel like some people were. But
I think that second half performance brought it back, because I think the first 45 minutes was bad. It was bad. I mean, I can see why people were down in doldrums, but that second half, there was that fight that we were looking for all game long. And I think like one of my first things I want to talk about is that it's this fragile mindset. We give up a goal, and I know GERAERTS is trying to change this, and Thomas Rice talked about trying to change this, but like we give up a goal and all heads drop. and another goal usually happens short after. I think even the commentator said, like, usually when Schalke gives a goal, they usually give a goal in quick succession because they just are not ready for it. And it's the first 30 minutes. We saw this under Thomas Rice. We saw it now maybe 2 or 3 times now under GERAERTS. The first 30 minutes, for whatever reason, the team is just not awake, and then they had to get battered by 2-3 goals before they're like, oh, it's time to play a game now. Let's go. And then they look much better after that. What do you think would be the reasoning for that? Because, like, yeah, part of it you want to say it's the manager's fault because he has to get his team ready, right? But he can only do so much. The players are on the pitch. They're going to have to be the ones performing. I'm torn. I think it's obviously 50-50 in terms of blame, I think. How do you feel about that? Because first 30 minutes not being ready, time in, time out, it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I have no idea, honestly. I don't know how to explain that. It does seem like the team isn't as stable or level as you would want them to be kind of throughout various game states, or, you know, in terms of what's happening. Like you don't want a team to go down a spiral if they concede. And you also don't want a team to get like noticeably better after they score. Like you would like the effort and sort of the performance to be pretty level, and then hopefully, you know, it goes your way. You don't want to, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like we tend to kind of go with the flow of the game a lot more than we should, like emotionally and energy wise, which is weird. But
instead of dictating, we go with the flow. You know, it's like
yeah, and definitely, I mean, definitely conceding in the first half way too often. Like we're digging ourselves holes in these games far too much. Like, I mean, I don't know. We have to find a way to try to keep like first half clean sheets.
Yeah,
and at least keep ourselves in it until halftime. There's way too many times where we've conceded, you know, 2 goals plus in the first half, and it's impossible to dig yourself out of that.
And what's infuriating too is like the few times that we do get the first goal, we're like, okay, this is what we want to see, and then we give it like 3 goals after that. You're like, we can't win. We can't win.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, look, if you're scoring 3 goals in a game, you should win the overwhelming majority of games in which you score 3 goals. And it seems like if we score 2 or 3 recently, or from this entire season, scoring multiple goals is almost doing nothing for our like win percent. Like, it just seems like because we're conceding 3-4 goals like all the time. I
am curious now because I feel like we scored 2 or 3 goals many times and have lost. Okay, obviously Dusseldorf's won, right?
I could be being hyperbolic, but like it certainly seems that way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just
it could be, but I feel the same way as you. And every game we look at 1 goal. Magdeburg, we won that game. Damn, yeah, we don't have that many games. Hamburg, yeah, it seems like it's a lot more. It's only been 2 games.
Conceded 5 in the first week to Hamburg.
And then now
conceded 3 to Magdeburg, 3 to St. Pauli, 3 to Paderborn, 3 to Karlsruhe.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Anyway, it can't happen like that. But yeah, when you score that many goals, you should win majority of the time. I kind of want to go to your talking point that you want to talk about earlier because it kind of goes to my talking point after that. But you mentioned Brian Lasma and which is better suited for him being either in the middle as an attacker or out wide left. Tell me your thoughts on that.
I don't know. I understand him playing central to some extent just because the options that we have there are basically like Tirada, Top, or Polter. Tirada just doesn't seem to be an option there as a starting player consistently.
Or on the bench, apparently.
Polter is definitely more of a physical presence and has some improvements over Tirada in areas, but just like doesn't score nearly enough goals and isn't as dangerous offensively as you would need that consistently. And then Top's just not there yet, you know, as a youngster to be able to kind of show that he can take on that role with any consistently. So I get it from that standpoint, but I don't know. There's times where I feel like, especially with his first half performance, there's a lot of like dribbling happening, a lot of him trying to take people on, and there's not enough facilitation. And I feel like sometimes if you can just kind of keep him out of the game for a minute, kind of on the periphery, and then, you know, play to him in rhythm as we're kind of crossing the midfield line, he has the kind of pace to be able to, you know, take a quick touch or two with his long strides, get himself a yard of space when it's like a one-on-one foot race, and be able to whip in some balls from wide areas. And I feel like that would be a pretty useful outlet for us, or kind of chance creation mechanism, or at least to advance the ball to final third and, you know, whip some balls and that kind of thing. And so I feel like he's kind of being wasted when we don't have him there. When he's central, I mean, once again, great balance, great physical presence, as we've talked about, and he can do some things, but I feel like he's almost more dangerous in wide areas when he can use his pace and his I mean, I hate to use like pace and power, right, in that sort of like stereotypical thing, but like we've literally seen him do that in a Schalke shirt, like moments where we look like we have nothing on, ball goes out to him, he smokes somebody in 2 steps and then has, space to do something, whether it's, shoot, dribbling in himself or supply to somebody else. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird because it's like this combination of like Karaman and Lasma, and neither one of those guys are like the most convincing forward players for that kind of role. So, it's frustrating from a personnel standpoint. I don't know. How do you feel? I mean, do you think he's better used where he's been used recently? I mean, obviously second half, much better performance, but it's just, do you understand my point at least?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I called him the new Marius Bulter for a reason, because I see a lot of similarities with Bulter. Bulter's good, was better on the wide side, use his pace. Now Bulter's a bit better technically with his feet, but Lass is pretty good too. He's got good pace too, and he's got good balance. I mean, they both were number 11, right? What was the first game we saw under Gerards in the friendly against Heracles? Ball comes out from OE on into the back, guys all over. He does his one nice touch around him and smokes him, goes down and scores a goal. Saw us again a couple games later. I think he's best used, like you said, on the wing with the ability to come in and feed the ball into the middle. Maybe Karaman should be more centralized than he is, because they put him on the wing, and he's got okay pace, but nothing like Lasma, not at all. And I think Karaman may be better suited to be as a striker. He in his career, he typically hasn't been that. He's been more like the attacking midfielder or something like that. But I think if you have between the two, you'd want Lasma wide, because I agree with you. I think the pace can cause issues for defenses, much like other teams' offenses do that to Matriciani and Oeon and Merkin or whoever back there. Lasma certainly, his speed is certainly an asset we need to take advantage of, and it showed on that goal that he scored to make it 5-3 or 4-3. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and particularly when some of the other options on the pitch at that time were like Matriciani at right back, and then Tobias Moore, who like has obviously great delivery from the final third, but he's not blowing by people on the left wing, generally speaking. So I don't know. It just feels like a missed opportunity to kind of take advantage of one of those attributes. Not that he doesn't have attributes that he brings to the game when he plays centrally as well. So I don't know.
Now I do want to say, before I go one more talking point, and then I do want to mention Clemens Tonys. I know we don't want to talk about him, but I got to. But first, the last talking point, which is kind of the next point from the last one thing, is with Gerards. He's obviously said that he wants to play attacking football and beautiful football, but he wants to stabilize the defense. And we've seen that it's been like a 5-3-2 or something to that effect in the beginning of the games, because he wants to stabilize the defense, but we're clearly not good enough to try to stop teams from doing what they're going to do, because they're still finding ways to destroy us defensively and score their goals. And it seems like, and maybe this is because we're getting so behind in games that it's just a natural part of the game, but we look much better when we play more attacking. Now, I'm not saying going all out attack like we did against Fortuna the last 15 minutes, but put 3 in the back and just put more people up and try to attack more. Yes, our defense is weak, but maybe you got to put extra midfielders in there and assign them the roles of coming back when we lose the ball immediately. Schallenberg cannot do it alone. We said it how many times. Schallenberg can't be the only guy in midfield helping out the defense. But I think we've looked so much better, so much more of a threat when we turn into this offensive mode or attacking mode versus that 5-3-2 that we start the games. I mean, we've gotten behind how many times now under Gerards on this. But do you think that would work, or you think that's just a product of us getting behind and the other team is just being more, relaxed because they got a big lead usually?
I think it could. I think it honestly could just be like a personnel thing too, and getting the right combination of people out there. I mean, I think like you mentioned Schallenberg a second ago. I think I'm just kind of out on Schallenberg at this point.
But who would you put in?
I mean, like
how many options?
Even Seguin late in the game moved to the 6 and was facilitating a little bit better. I'm not saying he has the defensive capabilities to kind of screen for that back line.
You think Latza could do it?
I mean, neither one of those guys are really who you want in sort of a lone 6 position in front of that like back 3. If you're going to
maybe 2 8s or something like that.
But the thing is, we switch shape back to sort of I'm not gonna call it like double pivot. You know what I mean? Like there's 2 central midfielders weren't really building up that way, but like 2 more holding midfielders and then the 1 more advanced guy. I mean, I don't know. It certainly seemed like this change of shape helped us in this game. So maybe he'll move to that going forward more. I know what you mean though. Like you want to see more happening and throwing some people forward potentially. Yeah, not all out like at the end of the Dusseldorf game, but. And
I'm not saying it's the end all be all for our defensive problems. I'm just saying, like, you have a better chance of it's easier to not give up goals when you're the one trying to attack on the goal. Granted, there's kind of attacks that we get beat for all the time, but I think it would just, if you have the ball, it's less chance that they're gonna have the ball, right? That was the whole Pep Guardiola's mentalities, right? I have the ball, you're not gonna score, right? So not that we're anywhere near Pep Guardiola's level, but so his last commentary, well, you know, we talked about the injury of Drexler. He's out for the rest of the year, 2023. With a groin injury. It's a torn muscular fiber injury, whatever. Kabadai, same thing. He's injured with similar injury. Latza, funny enough, he's coming back. He was out for the same reason. And it's a coincidence that all three guys, a lot of this injuries happened to everyone. It might be overworked in the practices. I don't know. But my last talking point that I want to bring up, and I'm trying to give the credit from the Discord who kind of brought this to our attention. Anyway, you know, I think it was Garfi in the Discord channel, but he mentioned this, and I'll read the headline for you, Jack. It's former Schalke board member aims to remove current leadership at Schalke. So this is according to Bild, but I've seen other outlets reporting this as well, that Clemens Tony's is trying to get back in the club, trying to save the club, so to speak. He has a lot of money. He says he's going to inject Schalke with a lot of money. He's going to try to make the supervisory board force the upper management out, you know, with this money and the promise of bringing Oliver Runert from Union Berlin. Now that's he's kind of happy in the first division at the moment. I don't know why he would come down to Schalke, but that's what Clemens Tony's is saying. He's got all this money and he wants to save Schalke, get them back to relevancy. First thing many people are going to say is hell no, right? It's Clemens Tony. We know what you did. You're a scumbag. But thoughts on Clemens Tony's trying to get back to the club potentially? This is the rumor. It's been getting stronger and stronger over the last few weeks. But thoughts upon that?
No idea. Part of me is like, I wonder how much is just BS to kind of distract Schalke, because we know there's certain outlets that enjoy leaking things or kind of creating drama around Schalke and, you know, capitalizing off when we're in a bad situation. I mean, I think we were probably well rid of him when we were, for kind of what went down.
Yeah.
I think there's also simultaneously a growing kind of portion of the supporter base and kind of feeling generally that Schalke needs to restructure and potentially modernize a bit, and get a little bit more serious and potentially sacrifice, you know, some things to secure our sporting future and our competitiveness. And it certainly sounds like Tony's would be the kind of guy that would want to push in that direction. And maybe in this situation, given how bad things are, that's actually more attractive to people than it would have been a couple years ago, when he was, you know, separated initially. I still don't see it happening, and I'm not sure I would want it to happen, but I guess it's something to keep an eye on and monitor. I'm not really putting a whole lot of stock in it at this point yet, as something that I need to really pay attention to closely to, though.
Neither am I. If it was another name that had money, I was okay, maybe there's a chance, but you know, Clemens Tony's, I don't see it, and not that I don't necessarily want it. Exactly. But you know, this is what if we find a way to right the ship, so to speak, and get back into the mix in this fight the league, and not talking about promotion, because I'm pretty much forgot about that at this point. If we can get into the mid-table range, or even a little bit higher than that, then this point is going to be moot. But I think if we drop into the third division, I think almost we have no choice but to modernize, because there's no more money. Everything we've been doing for the last since Raul left has been gone to the shitter. It's been getting progressively worse, and you got to try something. You know, the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expecting change, and it hasn't happened yet. And I think hopefully we don't get to that point. But if we do eventually get relegated again, you're gonna have to think outside the box. That 50+1 might not be the greatest solution for us going forward. So, but I don't know. I'm not there with Tony's at all. It just this came up, and I'm like, ooh, I don't want it, but my goodness, I know the supervisory board are trying to get away from the sporting director role per se, and do something a little more modern in that sense. But I don't know about all this. So we just got to get some results, man. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think these conversations would be happening to the extent that they are right now if we were sitting fourth in the table, for example. So it's amazing what a couple results in quick succession can do to kind of paper over some of the cracks. So hopefully we get that and can kind of put some of this talk to the back burner for the time being.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we're sitting at 13 points right now, which is unreal. We're 10 points behind 7th place Hanover, but only 3 points behind Hansa and Karlsruhe and Magdeburg. And, a couple of results. 6 points, and we jump all the way up to 10th position. That's how crazy this fight the Liga is. But our next game on Friday, you have the Hamburg derby, which is going to be amazing. Unbeaten St. Pauli against Hamburg. But we play also Friday, a double game on Friday with Osnabrück. Finally, a team that we're ahead of in the table. They're sitting at the bottom of the table on 7 points, 6 points behind us.
Must win.
It's absolutely a must win because we got the break coming up soon. And after that, we got Hansa Rostock. After 9 days, a big layoff after that, and then 3 more games, including Osnabrück. We have 3 games before the big international break or big Winterpause before we get Hamburg to kick things off in the Rückrunde. But yeah, we got to win. It's a midday game, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's a must win, Jack. It's
relegation 6-pointer, my friend. Yeah, but as Dirk says in the chat, 2 wins in a row, and we'll start talking about promotion. That's the way it goes. No, that's all we need. The good vibes will come back if we can string a couple of results together. And Osnabrück needs to be the first in that chain. As we approach the Winterpause.
Just got to get the momentum going. You got to just figure it out. And luckily, it's a long Winterpause. They can hopefully figure things out. But yeah, we'll see. Who knew in a loss we could talk for 15 minutes plus? But hey, there we are. So anyway, anything else, Jack? Because I'm good. Losing my voice.
No, I think we put that one to bed.
Put that one to bed, like hopefully we did with Clemens Tony's, right? But we could use money. We could certainly use money. So, all right, Jack, where can our followers find you on social media?
At JMangan, JMMANGAN on Twitter.
Wonderful. You can find me at R_KHARMAN. More importantly, follow us at Schalke America, both on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere across social media. Podcasts can be found anywhere you stream podcasts and audio. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, or if you're not and you're listening, go to our YouTube page, subscribe, like the comment in the videos. Be much appreciated. We're gonna try to put some more videos out. Even talk a little bit about Thomas Oljan and comparison to what he and Timo Baumgartel have done. We recently put a video on young Ouedraogo picking up an injury for at the U17 World Cup. He's out for the remainder of 2023 with an injury. And I forget what the injury is now. All of a sudden, but it's not as bad as it seemed initially. And then also, we'll talk about the youth academies as best we can as well. So, all right, we'll catch you guys not during the game. The game's at 12:30. We'll catch you next week at some point, probably Monday. But we'll let you know. We'll let you know. So, for Jack, I'm Richard. Enjoy the rest of your week, and let's hopefully get a result this Friday. So, Glück auf!